Hi, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Welcome back to The Mill. I am your host, Rachel Ballatori, the founder and CEO of Mill & Co. Excited to have a wonderful powerhouse guest with us today, Jenna Borrelli. Her pronouns are she, her, and hers. Jenna, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, let's learn a little bit more about Jenna. She's a marketing strategist at Merge, an owner and wellness expert at Jenna Borrelli Life, and she resides in Chicago, Illinois. She's passionate about helping individuals find balance and creativity in their lives to help mitigate risks of burnout. Don't we all need that? Jenna is certified in therapy, yoga teaching, trauma-informed coaching, and breath work. She uses her breadth of wellness knowledge to develop corporate wellness programs and also support individuals in group and one-on-one settings. In her free time, she explores different art mediums, experiments in her kitchen, and enjoys time in nature. Talk to me, Goose. How do you do this working at an agency, which I am all too familiar with as an owner of one, and then starting to shift into your own business of balance and mitigating burnout? Talk to me about how that all started.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think boundaries are the name of the game, self-imposed boundaries, and then also getting really intentional with my time management. I spend a lot of my lunch breaks, pre-work, post-work, like my day job work, focusing on building out my brand and doing workshops and all of that good stuff. So, um,
Yeah.
and it really started from my own burnout. Like this all started as a unintentional side effect of my burnout, where I was working at a different agency and really struggling to balance everything. And I said, okay, I'm going to take a break from the corporate world for a little bit. I'm going to regroup. And I just kind of had this like summer where I was sort of like this like floating amoeba and I was just doing whatever I wanted. And I was like, what if I really focus my energy on preventing this from happening in my own life, but also supporting the life of others that I know, where, especially in the agency world, there's incredible high risk of burnout. Um, so having that foot in the marketing agency world and having that foot in the wellness world, I'm able to really bridge those gaps and understand the overworking, the stress, the urgency, and kind of use my own knowledge and resources and my own experience to help facilitate that bridge between those worlds.
I'm grateful for people like you, Jenna, because there's a lot of industries where burnout is real, but
Mm-hmm.
advertising is one of them,
Mm-hmm.
particularly really traditional agencies, which I am all too familiar with before I started my own, almost 8 years ago now. Just to take it back, when you were younger, is this what you thought you'd be doing?
I'm so glad you asked this question. So when I was a little girl, I wanted to either be a teacher, a professional chef, or an author. And pleased to say that I am able to combine those areas in my life. I do talk a lot about lifestyle changes through the kitchen. I write a lot. I've published some work in magazines and online, and hopefully, we'll have a book coming out one day. We'll manifest it here. And also, I do a lot of teaching as a consultant in the agency world, and then as a workshop facilitator and as a wellness consultant in my personal practice. There's so much education around burnout recovery, around boundaries in the workplace, work life balance. So I do love living with my inner child in my heart and thinking about how I have all of these different ideas and constantly changing and how they've sort of like been woven into my current life.
So the answer is yes, you are doing exactly what you thought you'd be doing as a kid. You know, it's interesting. When I was a kid, I wanted to be a vet. But then I realized that vets also have to do the sad stuff about being vets, and I decided I didn't want to be a vet. And then I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to rescue all the dogs. And I have 3 rescue dogs, and I would have 15 if I could. So am I doing what I thought I'd do? Partially. Let's check back in it again in another 10 years and
Yeah,
see.
that sounds good. And
So what was your like, oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
I was gonna say working at running an agency is like wrangling a bunch of stray animals anyway. So in a way, you're doing the sort of deep care and the empathetic work of
Yeah.
the vet world with less of the sad stuff, I hope.
That's the creative writer in you, Jenna. I appreciate that about you.
Thank you, thank you.
So what was the moment that a light bulb went off and you were like, you know what I'm going to do is start my own business in wellness? What was that pivotal change for you?
Yeah, so it really started when I decided to sign up for hypnotherapy school. It hit me like this very mysterious wind. I was sitting at my table in my old apartment a couple years ago, and I was like sitting in the dark, very spooky, and I was just like, I want to make a change in my life. How can I do this? And I was like, oh, I know about hypnotherapy. And I didn't know a lot. I knew enough to like kind of be interested. And it was almost like I looked online for a program. A program was starting in a month. I signed up for the program. I was like, whoa, we're going to throw some cash at this in a 6 to 12 months of my life. And let's go. And from there, as I continued to self-explore, I understood that I could combine all of my passions into this sort of Jenna Borrelli life, the universe, I like to call it. And before I formally even had an LLC, I was always interested in kind of doing my own thing on top of corporate. Like, I love having those two worlds that I get to balance, and they feed into each other really, really well. So the sort of intro into it was I can make this amazing change through my own sort of release of these limiting beliefs and my own accountability and my own self compassion. If I can do it, I know there are
Yeah.
other people who have been through similar experiences. I want to help them, and I want to do it in a very encompassing and holistic way versus, historically there's a lot of wellness that is exclusive and very like shame your way into healing or shame your way into like lifestyle changes. And I like the very like, we can do this in a nice way, but you have to keep yourself accountable, but we can be nice. And so I saw the deep self compassion that I created and cultivated in school, and it felt like I could make a business off of being self compassionate, like, or being compassionate to other people. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. And it's just
Yeah.
been so interesting as it has grown and as it has developed as well.
It's amazing. And I can only speak from my own experience working at two different very traditional, one startup agency before I started my own business.
Mhm.
And it is amazing to me how quickly within that environment of a bit of hostility, a lot of competitiveness, tight deadlines, big expectations, your self compassion is out the window. It just happened. I mean, I watched it happen to everyone around me, and it
Mhm.
happened to myself before I started making some changes in my life professionally. But it's just incredible how we, even though we're smart, motivated, educated, experienced humans, get into these situations, and that's like the first thing to go.
Absolutely. I understand that a lot of agency experiences kind of bring out, I do a lot with like inner child and inner self work. So I think it brings out a lot of this sort of inner team, and you want to get the promotion, you want to get the, you want the people to appreciate you, and you want to be seen. And those are all really beautiful things. But when you stop caring for yourself, what's the point? What's the point of climbing the ladder if you don't take a lunch break?
Yep.
If you work 7 days a week when you're technically salaried, or you're on a very specific contract, or you have a set of hours that you've agreed with your agency, like, hearing that kind of work, it is a form of sabotage, self sabotage, even if it is sort of cloaked in success. And
Right.
I like to believe that we can switch that conversation, and you can be successful with your health intact, with your wellness intact, with your self compassion intact. And it takes work. It takes a lot of inner conversation and inner kind of tinkering, but it's valuable tinkering. And it really sets people up to be better bosses and better agency owners, and also just better coworkers when you are showing that you can have these boundaries and you can have this sort of self-love be incorporated into your career, which the inner hippie in me is really like, self-love, let's go. But it's so important. It really is so important.
Yeah. Do you find that you're working with a lot of C-suite or senior leader folks, or is it a combination of that level plus just employees across maybe some lower level positions?
Yeah, I would say the work that I'm doing encompasses as high as C-suite to individual contributor. It's conversations with bosses and managers on how to have these conversations, how to be inclusive in the work environment, how to encourage employees to use their PTO, to engage in employee benefits. And then it's also talking to individual contributors and how to build confidence in advocating for yourself, how to create routines that are flexible and interesting, how to create daily rituals that give you something to look forward to every morning and every night. And I find value in that
Mm,
difference in both of those environments and both of those audiences. They both bring a lot to help the other group or sort of the whole spectrum of the group.
yeah. Is there a common roadblock you see in particularly folks in positions of leadership that they have a hard time overcoming when they start working with you?
Yeah, I a big roadblock, and I'm sure you've heard this working with different companies, is this is the way that we've always done it. This is the benefit that we've given. This is the culture that we've created. And while there are really rich cultures that are in these different environments, and it's not to say to throw everything out the window, but I start by kind of coming back with the why. Why do we do it that way? Why do we speak this way about our company? Why do we speak this way about the work that we do or that you do if I'm speaking to an organization outside? And I think there is a lot of sort of holding on to things, even if they're not working well, because we're comfortable even in the discomfort. We know it has some value because we've done it or they've done it, but I think really challenging sort of the status quo is helpful to kind of start thinking outside of why things are maybe breaking down or why people are feeling stressed or fill in the blank experience.
Yeah, it's so fascinating you say that because one of the core pieces of work that we do at Mill and Co is called a blueprint strategy, where we help our clients identify their why, but it's not why they believe in themselves, because of course they do. It's why should the clients and customers believe in them,
Yes.
right? It's a different answer when you really break it down. And that is so, it's so fascinating that I never really considered how applicable that is to um, trickling down into the culture of how they treat their own people. So I'm curious, are you finding a lot of connective tissue between your wellness practice and the marketing and strategy work that you do?
Absolutely. The first word that came to mind, or the first phrase that came to mind for both worlds, is change management. Wellness
Right.
is ultimate change management, and really good marketing comes with change management. And you're constantly on the fly thinking of new strategies, new campaigns, how to analyze data, new tools to invest in. And even if you're seeking better results in the same way you are seeking better results in your culture or in your personal health goals, there's a resistance. So I think learning how to navigate that change management has been this amazing bridge between those two worlds. And
Right.
also, I think fighting urgency culture, that is like such a huge perspective in it. While there are things that are hot, top of mind, important, right? We want to move with some speed in our lives. I don't think that's a problem, but if everything in our inbox is urgent, hot, alert, alert, who gets prioritized? What gets
Right.
prioritized? And I think the same goes with our health. We're often fed these narratives of like, your 20s are your peak, your 30s are this, your 40s are that. And I hear of and see transformative stories of people just starting their lives in their 40s, just starting their lives in their 50s, getting the best health they've ever gotten, or finally setting boundaries with their family or finally signing up for a wellness program. And so I think there's sort of that sort of imposed cultural urgency of you have to get it figured out by like 30. No, you have to like be in your best shape at 22. And while we can't completely hack biology, there are things that we can do to sort of be less urgent and stressed in our approach to both worlds.
I'm giggling to myself because I have for sure been guilty of two things that you just mentioned. One is this like sense of urgency as a business owner,
Right.
right? My expectations for myself, my company, my employees, our contractors is as high as it can possibly be. And that's what's driven all of our success. But it's also what I noticed over the last few years can actually slow things down.
Right.
Because if everything is urgent, then nothing is urgent. And so it's something I've been actively working on the last couple of years to really zoom out and take a bigger look at what is the full timeline of this. The other, on more of a personal note, is, waking up and saying, okay, well, if I didn't go to the gym this morning, I don't have time to lift later today. And now I haven't worked out. But I didn't meal prep. So I don't really have a lot of healthy food to eat. So now I'm going to have a horrible day. And then I kind of live in this cycle of I didn't work out. I don't have something healthy to eat. Now I'm going to have a terrible day at work and I'm probably not going to sleep well tonight. And I will ruminate on those things all day. And then I'm exhausted mentally by the end of the day because I've just been running in this negative narrative of things that are like, well, maybe I can just go for a 20-minute walk outside, on a treadmill. Maybe I can just do 50 squats in my house. Maybe I can scrape something together to feel like I'm having at least some protein in a meal versus just sitting in this, like, you're not doing the things you need to be doing. Look how terrible of a person you are type of mentality. That's been a big challenge, I think. And a lot of women, specifically female entrepreneurs that I have met with, struggle with that sentiment.
Wholeheartedly. I completely empathize and experience that all or nothing mentality in my own practice, in my own life. And when you're building a company from scratch, it's all on you, right? I mean, obviously you have contributors and potentially business partners, but getting that work out the door is your vision. And so it can be easy to sort of approach the rest of your life that same way, especially if that's like a core value is being driven, being athletic, being really prepared. And so as soon as that identity is challenged due to one bad night of sleep, one week, 1 year of our lives, right? And thinking bigger picture, all of a sudden our identities are challenged. And it's like, well, if I can't go to the gym and meal prep, then I basically don't have muscle actually. Actually, I'm a blob on the floor and I will never work out again. Right? It's like starts to
Yeah.
spiral. But I absolutely love the way you spoke about, well, what if I did 20 minutes of treadmill? What if I went to the smoothie shop and treated myself to a little protein smoothie down the street? Now I'm supporting another local business and I'm, giving into my community. And that is such a great example of reframing, which is like the culmination of wellness and hypnotherapy is like, how can you reframe basically anything? And let's say you don't have the hour in the morning. What can you achieve in that day that still feels good to you? While also recognizing rest is a valuable use of your time. And I always think about that as well as that is always a great option.
Yeah. I saw something recently that, and I know I'm going to get this wrong, but it was something on TikTok. So, take it with a grain of salt. But it was saying that if you feel immense guilt while you are resting, which is well earned rest, you're not actually resting because you're just sitting there processing things that probably aren't really critical nor necessary to be thinking about in that moment. And then you guilt yourself out of having rest, but you're not actually doing the work. You're in this kind of moment of paralysis,
Hmm.
and I've spoken to so many people that have that because they're high achievers. They want to get a lot done. They feel a lot of guilt by not doing things when in fact taking that moment of rest helps you reset to then go tackle things or go into it with a clear mind to prioritize and compartmentalize of like, or this doesn't matter. This is a 6 month thing, or this is within the next 3 months. And I should probably tackle this week, and using your time maybe to think more productively versus say, well, there's a pile of dishes in the sink and I haven't responded to Cheryl's email and I haven't done all these things. And I also should probably go for a walk and my dogs are whining because they want to go outside. And it's just such a negative mindset to be in.
Yes. I absolutely love that you brought up the concept of rest and calling it productive and honoring it. That's something I really deal with. Sometimes when I'm resting, I'm just like, girl, what are you working on? And it's like, I'm working on recharging all of my cells. I'm working on my digestion. I am working on my neurons fire. You know what I mean? Like I try to think about like what's happening with our bodies when we're resting. Our sleep is one of the most like important things that we can do for our bodies, and also honoring our rest cycles is so critical for actually recharging. I like to think about, the gas that we have in the tank, right? And if you're sitting there and your rest is almost like filling the gas back up, and you're like, well, I got to get back on the road. You have 2 miles worth of gas. Like, how
Yeah,
far are you going to get? How much are you going to get done?
right.
And I always feel I do my best work after I've been well rested. And as a creative, and I know you experience this working with creatives and being creative yourself, I sometimes get amazing ideas when I'm just like daydreaming, when I'm just like chilling, going for a walk, maybe laying in the grass. And so I think there's actually a hidden power in rest where you are able to access ideas that may have been not as accessible because you were so focused on the go, go, go. I think that's a great
Right.
reframe too, is it's an opportunity to tap into the brain in a way that you might not experience it when you're in a certain mindset or activity. Honoring
Yeah.
that as important, but then also honoring the work of being well rested.
Yeah. Within the past few years, I was introduced to the phrase, you can't work on your business if you work in your business.
Mm.
And that was such as a small business owner with a small team, that was such a rude awakening statement for me to hear, because I was like, but I just do it all, I do everything. But as we've grown and scaled, I cannot. And actually, by working on the business and putting the right people in place to work in the business, it has only exponentially increased our speed of growth, our scalability, what we're actually able to take on. But it took that moment of clarity to take a step away and look back down at the business and say, wow, okay, maybe I don't need to handle accounts payable and accounts receivable as the CEO.
Yes.
Maybe I can hire someone to do HR even if they're a contractor, right? Why am I doing these things that I don't need to be doing in my business so I can, step away? And the only way I figured that out was by taking myself on kind of like a mini retreat.
Mm.
I didn't really go anywhere. I just took a solid work day off, which I have not done in, a million years, and just focus on thinking about, well, where do I see this business going?
Mhm.
So when I do speak with a lot of other entrepreneurs, that's the advice I give them is, are you scheduling time to give yourself a retreat to look at your business? Are you working in it, or are you working on it? Or are you doing both like I was for a very long time?
Yeah, I absolutely love that advice of taking a step back. And it works for also marketing, right? Like you need to sometimes zoom out when you're really heavy in the weeds. If you're very technical or specialized or very specific in the work that you're doing, it can feel very clouded and very disorienting. And I'm going through something similar with my business where I was, just posting on TikTok, Instagram, whatever, posting to post and not really feeling very excited about it. And I sort of decided to sign up for a social media workshop that feels very like weirdly relaxing to me. like being in the workshop, like I don't feel like I'm stressed. And the teacher is very aligned with like the way that I work and the way that I learn. And it was just like, wow, I wasn't
Yeah.
learning anything transformative in the sense like I've never heard it, but hearing it through the way that she taught it, I was like, you're right, you're right. And
Yeah.
coffee shops are great for mini retreats, right? You don't even have to go far, or you can like go to a different state, go for a road trip, depending on people's availabilities, right? But just taking that day to honor the wholeness of what you're doing is so, so powerful. So that is really great advice.
Yeah, thanks. I'm trying really hard to practice what I preached the last couple of years, and it's going slowly well for me. Now, you mentioned hypnotherapy earlier. Can you define that in the simplest terms? What does hypnotherapy mean to you in your practice?
Yes, absolutely. So, hypnotherapy in its most simple form is a goal oriented relaxation practice So it is using relaxation, breathwork, meditation, the trance state. So this very calm brainwave state in order to access what we're trying to achieve, whether it's a belief that is blocking us, whether it's a memory that we're having a hard time uh, learning how to actually let go of. Maybe it's a business solution we haven't been able to get down. Maybe it's an idea for a book or whatever. So when an individual goes into a session of hypnosis, they are fully in charge. And a hypnotherapist, their goal is to act as a conduit and act as like a co-pilot versus doing it onto them. They are there to help the individual access the state of relaxation that allows them to fully unleash what's going on in their subconscious brain.
Now, how do you do hypnotherapy with someone who is either skeptical or very guarded? Is it challenging to get them into that state of relaxation and trance?
Yeah, there are folks that come into hypnotherapy from what we call fully suggestible to fully guarded. Fully suggestible would be the client that can go into trance very quickly. They're willing to accept anything that comes up. No one I would say is 100% suggestible off the bat when they're in that state. So many folks come in and they say, I don't know if I understand this. And so I like to formulate my sessions as session one is I want you to just get to know me and feel comfortable with me as an individual
Mm.
and start to open with what we do kind of like in the same way as an athlete, you do drills, we do little subconscious drills. So we say, okay, like think of this or work on this without opening the floodgates because there might be some stuff that comes up that that individual hasn't built sort of the rapport to deal with. But by
Mm.
working on it slowly, session by session, we're not going from 0 to 60. So if someone is interested, that gives me enough that there is a part of them that is feeling called to it. It would be different if I went up to someone on the street and said, we're going to do this now. Because I don't think they would have a very good time because it's meant to be a very transformative and cool experience. So if someone
Yeah.
comes to me saying I'm interested, even if they are guarded, that has given me enough data to know they are at least open to it and that I can work with. And at the
Yeah.
end of the day, it might not be the best modality for them. And I honor that and I accept that. And I'm happy to help them find the best solution through maybe a different offering that I support, maybe breath work, maybe coaching, or I'm happy to work in my network and see who else can be a really great fit. So it is, we're able to come up with a solution, even if it's not immediately in that modality.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I am not skeptical of it. I find myself being guarded of
Mhm.
things I know I have suppressed.
Right.
And I know that there's moments of even as a business owner facing different situations that feelings will bubble up, but I've trained myself so well at this point to compartmentalize. But I'm like, at what point in my life is this going to come back
Right.
and bite me in the ass? Because I never addressed these things that I'm feeling from childhood of being, the only kid in a family of doctors that didn't go into medicine.
Hmm.
That's a big one for me. So you might have me giving you a call sometime soon because I am curious. I'm curious if I'm able to let go enough. I think there's probably a lot of people that come to work with you who are also much like myself, quite type A and controlling and just like to have things planned and see the future before the future hits me.
Hmm. Yes. And you're talking to one of those people. I'm very, very, I like to control things. I'm like a hybrid type A, B, C. I don't know. Like there are parts of me that are very like go getter, and then there's parts of me that are very disorganized. But nonetheless, I like to know everything that's going on, and I like to do a lot of things, right? And that's why I work especially with burnout prevention because I know what happens when you're go, go, go without honoring yourself. And I also understand what it feels like to suppress these things. And our modern
Mm.
day lives, it's challenging, right? You don't want to just have a moment where all of a sudden your childhood trigger is coming up, right? We got businesses to run, we've got work to do. And so I think rest is also a really great place to kind of honor maybe if those emotions come up. But um, Another really nice thing with the way that I practice somatic hypnotherapy is we don't have to go back to the memories. We can go adjacent. We can go with the
Mm.
antidote. So if you can say, I know that this feeling is a feeling of, I don't feel like I belong, I want to create belonging, then we can focus on reinforcing and creating belonging as a way to
Mm.
sort of not override, but provide support to those difficult emotions. So there are a lot of different ways to get to it. We don't always have to go to the root. We can kind of work around it, which I really like to do as well.
Yeah, that's such a cool concept. You mentioned burnout. I know that you've worked with organizations on things like DEI, burnout, anti-burnout strategy. Can you share an example of an organization that you worked with where you implemented a small change, but it had a really big impact?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do a lot of the burnout strategy work within Merge as a Merge employee and working on our corporate wellness. And one of the items that we were discussing is individuals not having time to take a break, a little bit of a callback to what we were talking about earlier. And we started to have really intentional conversations around advocating for better balance in the day and advocating for systems that allow people to take the breaks that they need and allow folks to actually enjoy the benefits that we were offering to employees. So, one of the examples was like an hour-long yoga session. People were saying, I don't have time to take a break. And it's like, okay, let's like dig into why you don't have time to take an hour from your day on a Friday to enjoy a yoga session. Um, so what we came away from this conversation was better advocacy for management. So it wasn't, so leadership was really on board and individuals were sharing their experiences, but the gap issue was with management and different
Mm.
expectations with management. And so by having these conversations, folks in management started to have changes in the way that they were speaking to their individual employees, and from that, better advocacy for those breaks, for those times, and also better advocacy for resourcing the talent that we had and the folks that were dealing with these experiences. So yeah.
Yeah. One of the things I just pulled out of what you shared is this concept of radical candor. Because
Hmm.
to be able to get to that solution, you had to talk to the three layers that you mentioned of the C-suite, the management, and the individual contributor. And the only way to get to that solution was to understand everyone's perspective of like, what's broken, what's going well, what are you feeling, what's your holdup, where do you thrive? And then and asking those similar questions to all three categories and then looking at it together. I mean, if anyone is listening to this podcast, which hopefully there's a few of you, how can this help you in your organization? When's the last time you asked your employees, hey, how can I help you today? What are you struggling with? What are you anxious about? And really give them that opportunity for radical candor to be really honest with you. If they can't be honest with you, then I think there's a deeper question of your organization of, have we created a culture where radical candor is something that folks are fearful that they might be fired, let go, perceptions changed about them?
Yeah. I love that you brought up radical candor. That's such a fun phrase, first of all. And second of all, it's such an important piece of it. And it goes back to, for me, change management. Radical candor is a catalyst for change management. Change management is a way to access better burnout prevention within any organization. And it was definitely uncomfortable at first to speak about these experiences because, to your
Right.
point, you feel like you have an arrow on your back pointing and saying, I'm not working hard enough. It's like, no, I can see your timesheet. Well, I can't, but it's like your boss can see your timesheets. You are putting those hours in. You are doing the best you can. If you
Yeah.
don't, and so I think giving people permission to speak frankly has been really powerful. And I'm grateful that that environment was cultivated. And I think individuals get a better chance at feeling safe if they have the right leadership to support that. And that is so important. And so if you
Yeah.
are a leader and you are hearing that, that is such a great takeaway is how can I be that, you know, place for my direct reports, my agency, my organization to come to me and say, this is not working, but I want to help make it better. I want to be part of the change. And then you get that collaboration piece as well, which is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Jenna, what's your legacy? What's your goal? What do you want to leave behind?
Yeah, I think what I want to leave behind is this feeling that people can be safe in their own bodies and they can be authentic to themselves, like real authentic, silly, neurodivergent, needing of support, dealing with life, whatever that label is that we often feel maybe unsafe to share. I want folks to feel at a somatic body level. I can show up as myself, and my employers value that and celebrate that for real. I think if I can hear from more folks that they are being valued and celebrated for the fullness of who they are, I will really feel like I have done my job well.
Yeah, that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a vision statement for your business, and I love that as a marketer.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, gotta write this down now.
Yeah, no, yeah, this is recorded, right? So you can just we'll give you the transcript. Well, Jenna, thank you so much. This has been such an awesome conversation. I'm sure you make all your clients feel this way, but even you and I just chatting, you feel like someone I've known for years and years and years, even though we've just met. So I can't thank you enough for coming on and talking about what you do and your background. For anyone listening, if you're interested in learning more about Jenna or getting in touch with her, she will be tagged on all of our social content as well as within our email marketing. So please connect with her and please continue to stay tuned to The Mill. Jenna, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rachel. It's such a privilege speaking with you.
Yeah, of course. All right, everyone. Until next time, thank you.